Okay, we ready? All right, midterm. So midterm grades or scores are up on CAP courses. And also I put on CAP courses a grading scale, a suggested grading scale for the and just remember is that there's no, we don't record the letter grades for the midterms. All we do is just record the points, and that we then just add up the points as the semester goes on. If you have any questions about how we grade, go back to the first lecture. It's on YouTube. We're talking in detail about how we go through and we do the grading. So the first off, midterm. I mean, was it what you expected? Say yes, it was what I expected versus kind of versus no, it was not what I expected. So next time for the final, you'll be like this, because the final will be just like this. So we'll give the final will be the same type of format. I'll give out an article before. Did any hints that you want to share with other people about how to read the article or how to get? No? Okay. Do you want me to go through I'll post the answer sheet. How many would like me to go through the midterm answer sheet versus doesn't really matter versus no, let's not waste our time. Let's see. Okay, more thumbs up than other way. Okay. So first one, children with asthma are more likely to go to the hospital when air quality is poor than when the air quality is good, right? So it asks basically what's your null hypothesis. So here's the research question. Here's the hypothesis, right? Children with asthma are more likely to visit the hospital when the air quality is poor than when the air quality is good. And then here's the null hypothesis. Children with asthma are not more likely to visit the hospital when the air quality is poor than when the air quality is good. Clear? Questions about that? Okay. What is the purpose of stating the null hypothesis, and what does it mean for statistical testing? So this is really about the hypothetical deductive methods, right? So this is like the idea is that you set up a tough test and things like that. So you can, go ahead and I'll let you read the answer. Rudy, you want to say anything in terms of how people answered this one in general?
Yeah, so this two was the first two in particular. A lot of you guys knew how to answer how to state a hypothesis, but no hypothesis, but they didn't know how to explain the purpose of everyone. And vice versa. A lot of you guys knew how to explain, but didn't know how to state a hypothesis. Also, a lot of you guys only can provide half of the answer for that particular question, what the purpose of having one. But you sort of forgot about, what you need for it. So, whenever you can make it.
Yeah, because the way that we grade them is that we look to see, like we give a certain number of points for did you answer the first part, and a certain number of points for did you answer the second part. So just after you're done, just make sure, like when you go back and review your answer, just make sure that you've answered both parts of the question. Or even if you think they're the same thing, then just explain why they're the same thing. But just realize that that's the way that people, that's the way you grade a midterm or grade the question.
Yeah. In terms of grading, if you try to state the hypothesis, I give you credit for trying, even though you have to play something. I'll sort of time with it. Even if you let it go long, I still give you a point for you're trying to put together an understanding.
If you want to do a cross-sectional study, then who would you sample, right? So what I've done is I've given you kind of just a little summary about the difference between a cross-sectional, a case control, a cohort, and a longitudinal study. And here's a little kind of table to kind of help you. So if you survey all at one time, then you're doing either a cross-sectional or a case control study. And if you're doing a longitudinal one, a survey over time, then you're doing either a longitudinal or a cohort study. So just, that's a good way to kind of remember. So in this case, it's a cross-sectional study. It means you're doing, you're doing all at one time and for the entire population. So the difference between like a cross-sectional and a case control is whether or not cross-sectional, you could just survey everyone, and a case control, you typically go out and find a group and then do that group. So that's the difference. Like, so if you're looking at I don't know, children with type 1 diabetes, right, which is relatively rare, and you want to see, do they, exercise more than children without diabetes? Then what you do is you probably would do as case control, where you would find children with type 1 diabetes as one group, and then you would have another group, which was just the general population. Whereas like a cross-sectional study, you just do everyone, and then you're hoping that you'll get enough children with type 1 diabetes in your survey. Okay. What's the dependent variables in the statement? Hospitalization is your dependent variable, and air quality is your independent variable. Right? Any questions about that? Any comments on this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of you guys still struggling to identify the and but that's a big question as well. You guys need to explain your answers, trying to get there. And I was looking for a lot of you guys to do that, even though some of you guys have flipped. I want to know why you guys look into that, but I would explain that.
Yeah, and I have to say is that it is something that it's not easy to oftentimes identify independent and dependent variables. It's something that takes a lot of practice in terms of what to do, especially when you read an article and you're trying to figure out, because they show a table and you're trying to figure out which of these variables are independent and which ones are dependent. I mean, the thing that always kind of helps me is just to do this thing, is to say, what do I think causes what? And then, so I state what I think the relationship is, and then I flip it. Like in this case, I think, well, hospitalization, I think, is the dependent variable, and so air quality causes hospitalization. That makes sense. But then if I flip it and I ask myself, well, does hospitalization cause air quality? No. So that means that air quality would be the independent variable, right? And hospitalization would be the dependent variable. So that's a little, something you can try is that when you, like on something like say, oh, I don't know, the final, when I ask you this question about what's the independent dependent variable, just think of your answer, then ask yourself if you flipped it, does it make sense? Okay, sometimes I notice that children with asthma, I notice children with asthma are more likely to go to the hospital when air quality is poor. I then think I know that not having health insurance is a barrier to using the hospital. So I theorize that children with asthma who have health insurance are more likely to go to the hospital than children with asthma who don't have health insurance. So then ask, is this inductive or deductive? And the answer is deductive, right? Because the first statement is inductive, right? Or the observation that children with asthma go to the hospital more. That could be inductive if I notice children going more, if I see some data that suggests that children, something like that. But the second one is deductive because I haven't actually observed it. Questions about that? Anything you want to add?
The other question. I guess some of you guys got a lot of giving us appointments, and vice versa as well.
Yeah. So now this one is a little bit this question. It's now asking about what's your null hypothesis and such, right? So you have to realize that this is a little bit different in this case because this is not sort of saying, are children with asthma more likely to go to the hospital when the air quality is bad, right? This is saying that given that the air quality is bad, are children with health insurance, children with asthma who have health insurance more likely to go to the hospital than children with asthma who do not have health insurance. So it's adding a bit of a twist to it. So that's where basically, children with asthma who have health insurance are not more likely to visit the hospital when the air quality is poor than children with asthma who do not have health insurance. So that's the null hypothesis. Questions about that? And then if cross-sectional study, and again, this is, So I'll let you read this on your own. It basically talks about a cross-sectional study, except for the thing that you want to make sure in this case is that, your populate, who you're sampling is basically children with asthma, and you need enough children with asthma who are in areas where there's going to be poor air quality. So like if you only did children with asthma who live in Santa Barbara, right? The air quality is rarely poor in Santa Barbara, so you wouldn't see any impact on hospitalizations. So you'd have to make sure and choose and get a sample of children with asthma where the air quality is bad, so that you could see enough hospitalizations. All right. Then what's your dependent and independent variables? Well, in this case, hospitalization is dependent, and now health insurance is your independent, right? Because you're not varying air quality anymore. It's now just varying health insurance. Questions about that? Anything you want to add, Rudy?
No, it's very similar to the other one.
Okay. All right, then the article, this was actually, a paper that was an undergraduate paper, right, is by these, so the authors are undergraduates at University of Minnesota, and it was published kind of in it seems to be like a University of Minnesota kind of research journal for students. Do they have that here? They have a research journal for students here? Yeah, I think they do. I think there's a UC Merced undergraduate research journal here. So it lists all the variables, right? And so I didn't list them all, but basically, if you look at the appendix, the appendix had the actual survey. So you could sort of see that they had the going to go to sleep quality questionnaire and then other measures about sleep quality, and then demographic information and GPA. Reading anything on that?
Yeah, so this is a specific question. I believe that only one person got credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you guys, the majority of you guys are struggling, and didn't identify with the variables that I did when I had this all the time. You guys were supposed to start these one of them.
Okay. Mhm.
So that question, yeah, I listed with the variables, but I was more at the start of the so yeah, I guess when you I just listed it based off of
You just went on a big long, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. So I mean, but I think that what I was looking for also is for you to say, oh, the first questions were the sleep quality questions and things like that. So I mean, I didn't in my answer here list everything just because, but I think the idea was that what I was looking for was basically you tell me what the variables kind of, I mean, this was a little bit unusual because usually when we've looked at papers, you don't actually have the survey to look at. And so all they'll do is they'll say, we gave the going to go to sleep quality, questionnaire. And so therefore, that's all you really would need to list and normally in the paper. So that's why it wasn't wrong to go ahead and list everything, but as long as you understood kind of what they were that they were. Yeah.
A lot of you guys gave the demographics, you guys sort of worked out the demographics. Most of the people all of their demographics.
Yeah. Okay. List the study's two hypotheses and then restate them as a null hypotheses. So there's your two hypotheses. Students who rarely deprive themselves of sleep would have higher GPAs. And then students who receive more favorable score and they could only go to sleep quality questionnaire would have higher GPAs. And so then those are your null hypothesis, no relationship between sleep deprivation and GPA, and no relationship between sleep quality and GPA. Okay, questions? In the discussion, the authors state our lack of findings supporting sleep quality, academic success link may have been due only to including questions about previous nights. What are they referring to? So they're referring to, if you look at the sleep quality questionnaire, right? it only asks things like, I had a deep sleep last night, etc. And so, what they're saying is that, well, this is something for which it's like, last night may not be I mean, why do they ask about last night? Why does the going to go sleep quality ask about last night? The idea being is that, well, last night is something you can remember well. And so therefore you could probably give a better indication about, accurate indication about how you slept last night than you could if we said, how did you sleep, 3 weeks ago, or over the last 3 weeks? But then also is that the idea is that that there's going to be, how you slept last night is somehow related to your overall, how you're going to sleep regularly. That's the assumption that's there. In this case, they also, their measure of GPA, that's more of a global measure of health. So for example, I may have a 4.0 GPA, but this semester I'm taking really tough classes and I'm sleeping poorly. So then what it would look like is that my sleep quality would be bad, but my overall GPA would be good, right? And what they really are trying to get at is what's your level of cognitive, your cognitive capacity right now. And so overall GPA may not be the best measure of what your cognitive capacity is right now. It's more of an indication of in the past. So they're not only assuming essentially is that the going to go to sleep quality index about how you slept last night is related to how you normally sleep, how you slept, recently, but also how you slept, over a long period of time, like that led to your GPA. So that's what they're talking about. And this comes up down below. It's a cross-sectional survey, right? But then, if you did a longitudinal survey, it talks about how you do a longitudinal survey, right? Excuse me, how you do a cross-sectional and things like that. Goes through and talks about this. And then what type of sampling errors might occur. So, what I was looking for in this is basically more of a discussion about, well, if you did a longitudinal survey and you use GPA as your primary measure, then it means like you're collecting information over a period of time, but your outcome measure is not going to vary because your outcome measure is whatever your GPA was, last year. So you'd have to use something which is more, if you're going to do a longitudinal study like that, then you have to use an outcome measure that's going to vary along the way, right? So if I ask you, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And I ask you now, and I ask you in a month, I ask you in 2 months, and I ask you in 3 months, is that it's probably not going to change a whole lot how many brothers and sisters you have, because that's more something that's, for most people is determined before the semester starts, and it's not going to change during the semester. If I ask you, how do you feel about your brothers and sisters on this 1 to 10 scale? That may change, depending on whether it's, you're close to Thanksgiving or not. But that may change a lot of how you feel about your brothers. So that type of measure does change. So that's why I just kind of talk about if you're going to go through and do this more, to really do a longitudinal study, you probably would have to find a different type of outcome measure. Now, I don't really expect that's the way you answered it. As I wasn't looking for that detailed kind of of an answer. But I just want you to, I did it just because, what I do is I kind of write down what the perfect answer is. And then, if someone gets the perfect answer, then they, I want to recognize that. At the same time, I didn't really expect that most people would get that. Anything you want to add?
What were you guys right and they better from that, so
Sounds good. And the answer to the extra credit was the All Blacks. Sadly, they lost this weekend. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
how many people got it right?
In this class, I think that there was I think 7, is that what it was? Yeah. And in the other class, see, you're my test case, right? Because I gave it in the other class to see, because I actually gave them the answer. And I wanted to see how many people got it right. So you got 7 out of 44 people got it right in here. So that's about 1/6, right? And there they got, I think 25 out of 75 got it right. So that's about 1/3. So I think there was some cheating in the other class, a little bit. But it also counts that, some people are from this class and that class as well. So that kind of influences it. So. It's a heartbreaking game. Just want you to know that. They lost to South Africa by 1. Could have won. It's tough. Okay. Anything else about the rugby or the test? No. Yeah.
Will we be able to get a friend?
Yeah. Rudy has the test, so just go ahead and talk to him, and he can get him back to you. Okay. All right. So thanks for sending through the summaries that people sent through. So what I've done is I've gone through and I have put this together. So what I've suggested we do is that you start by basically, like if you're going to do this, you would start by giving out the Pittsburgh Sleep Survey. So the Pittsburgh Sleep Survey looks like looks like this, right? So let's see if I can make this bigger. So the Pittsburgh Sleep Survey looks like this. During the last month, what time have you gone to bed, etc. So what I'm going to suggest we do is that actually we'll put the Pittsburgh Sleep Survey onto a Qualtrics survey, and so rather than you actually giving this out to people, is that people will just go online and fill it out. So that way you don't have to give it out. Okay. But what you can see, what this does is that this answers like a lot of people. I mean, a lot of the groups that sent in, they had questions about how much you sleep and things like that, and so this will answer a lot of those types of questions. So rather than giving out going through that in detail, I thought we'd give out this. And then so that's the first thing. Then, what I'm suggesting we do is that we set it up so that you first start about talking to the person about themselves. And so remember, the way that works is that, that this is kind of like you ask this question, and then you have these types of prompts. And then asking somewhat about their sleep during the semester, because the Pittsburgh, sleep survey kind of gives a general type of discussion about in the last 3 months. This one, I thought, well, if you want, we can ask more specific questions about what it's like here on campus. And then, okay, then there's the 3 groups. And so what I'll do is I'll separate out these questionnaires into 3 different questionnaires. So if you're going to do the work one, is that you just go to the work questionnaire. If you do the environment one, you go to the environment questionnaire. And if you do the distance one, you go to the distance questionnaire. So I've gone through and I've kind of, put these things in some type of order like that. And then, and I did it for the work and the distance one. For the environment one, I thought we might have a little chat about this because just to make sure that the questions are getting at what you want to get at. So, as a practice, why don't we go ahead and try one of these interviews right now? Does someone want to be interviewed? Anyone willing to be interviewed about? Come on up. Yeah, come on up. Have a seat. There we go. There we go. Thank you. So if we're doing this interview, what we would do is that first off, I would run through just the consent form with you and then say, do you agree to, because I can get your verbal consent. So I say, do you agree to participate?
No.
Okay, we're done. Thank you.
I just say yeah.
Okay. And are you okay if we record this?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recording that, right? So then I would, like for this, you can see there's all these things here, right? So I would say, just want you to ensure is that everything we talk about is confidential. What we'll do is that other than that, what we'll do is that we're recording this right now. And so we'll take all the information that's on the recording and then we'll transcribe it. But we'll take out all identifying information. So your name won't be anywhere in the transcript and nor will anything that can identify you. Okay. Well, thanks for agreeing to do this. First, can you tell me what your major is and what you study?
That's just a like truthful kind of something.
It's up to you.
Okay. I'm
It'll
studying.
be easier if you tell it truthfully.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I'm studying public health.
But I think it's informative to kind of think about how you're feeling, right? Because when you do talk to someone like this, it means that it's kind of, it's kind of embarrassing to talk to someone. And so I think that when you interview people, just realizes that, one is they're doing you a favor, right? By doing this. But at the same time, there can be things that you talk about that they may not want to talk about. And so I think you have to be aware when you do it that if it looks like it's getting into something that might be at all kind of an issue, is just to say, well, we really don't have to talk about that. You'd rather not. And sort of, you don't want to feel pressured into talking about anything that's going on. Similarly, is like if they start to get into some type of topic that is, like domestic violence or something like that, is that those are things that you probably think, well, you probably want to say, well, this is a serious issue, and so therefore, suggest that they get counseling, or seek help about it. Those things, I mean, I've never been in a situation where something like that's come up, but just to let you know is that, this shouldn't be something which is uncomfortable for the individual, nor should it be something for which you're put in an uncomfortable situation. And if either of you ever feel uncomfortable, you can just call it a day. Okay. So I'm sorry. So you're a psychology, a public health major? Mm-hmm. And what year are you?
I'm a third year.
Yeah. And why did you decide on public health?
I was debating between public health and psychology,
Mm-hmm.
but my sister's doing psychology. I didn't want to copy her.
Right. So, and have classes been like, what's been your hardest classes so far?
Epidemiology.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. This class is kind of hard.
Yeah.
I think it just depends honestly though, because if I have my free time down, I don't find anything super difficult.
So it's not the class per se as much as just the amount of time that you have to go through to study. Yeah. So let's see. So now, what I was doing is, as I was doing this, I was kind of just looking this and thinking about, well, is there anything else that seems like, so when you do these prompts are not necessarily, you don't have to cover everything, but it's like something for you such that just to make sure that if there's something that like comes up, is that you kind of know to follow up on it. Okay. Well, I would like to talk to you about your normal sleep, how you sleep during a normal week. So just when it's not midterms and finals time, do you have a normal time that you go to bed?
Yeah, I do.
What time?
At 2.
2.
Mhm.
And normal time you wake up?
It depends, but it's usually like 7:30.
Yeah. And do you tend to sleep through the night or do you wake up a lot?
I do like kind of. I do like a few times, but I think it's because I have a cat and I don't want to kick her off the bed. So.
Yeah. So the cat kind of wakes you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
How many times like a night does a cat kind of wake you up?
3.
So if you think about a time when you didn't have a really good night's sleep recently, what happened?
Like a new environment that I was looking
Yeah. So it was a new place, and so therefore that's what caused it to be kind of Just hard to sleep. Wasn't the cat kind of jumping on you?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a new place.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen very often.
No,
No. So normally, in like a normal week, you would sleep fine. Mhm. Okay. And when you don't sleep well, like how does it feel the next morning?
I usually, if I have something to do, then I'm just like sleepy throughout the day.
Right. Do you think it affects your academic performance?
I would say so, yeah.
How so?
Because like if I'm not getting a good night's sleep, then like I'm feeling sleepy during my classes. And
Yeah.
it's hard for me to pay attention.
So sometimes it's harder to pay attention when you're sleepy. In all classes, or are there certain classes where it's just really tough?
It depends on the class, I
Yeah.
would say.
Like what's a class? I mean, what's an example of a class? Not, to name the class, but like what type of class is it worse when you're sleepy than when you're not sleeping?
I would say it depends on the professor. Because
Yeah.
I have a professor who has a very monotone
Right.
sort of style.
Soothing.
Yeah, soothing. So I tend to feel a sleepy in there.
Yeah. Do you bring a pillow or do you?
No, I
Yeah?
use my laptop. So
Oh,
I
that's
have to-
nice. That's good. That's good. I had a class one time, when I was first semester. It was in 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It was a combined government and poli-sci class. And the room had like a little backdrop to it. And so people could sit there on the back and put their head back. And and it was, very 1 o'clock. So everyone was after lunch. And I looked at one time and there's like 35 people in the room and 22 of them are like this. I counted the way through. That was a boring class. Mhm. All right, should we do the work or should we do the distance? Which one do you think? Work or distance? Do you work? Do you have a job?
I do have a job.
Let's do that. We'll do the work one. Well, thanks for that. I want to focus on kind of what it's like to work and to go to school. So you have a job right now?
Yes,
Yeah. Can you tell me about your job?
I've tried to.
Mhm. Mhm. So what's the hours?
It depends on my customers,
Yeah,
but nighttime, people go crazy for it during nighttime.
that's why the 2 a.m. thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't be a drug dealer and go to sleep at 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a tough
Uh-huh.
job, it's okay.
And do you do this on campus or is it off campus or?
Honestly, I
Yeah.
get a lot of customers on campus.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
people love it.
that's good. And how many hours a week do you work?
It ranges,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't say a lot. I just, give my products out,
Right.
so,
Well, you don't give them out, right?
no, of course not.
No.
You have an
You
exchange.
distribute your products, yeah. And do you do it like does it change in midterms and finals time? Get more busy, get less busy?
Honestly, it gets more busy after finals and midterms.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I would
Because-
think like the types of drugs would change before and after. Like before it'd be more amphetamines and after, something else, no?
I do pure coke, so
Oh,
I
okay,
would
you're
say
just like, you're a single, oh, really, that's
Just one.
interesting, yeah. And why is that? I mean, is there a reason why just job wise, why you decided just to keep it a one product?
I also like coke, so
Okay, there you go. So you're both a customer and a user at the same
Yeah.
time. Oh, that's great. And the owner, that's great. And do you think that this has impacted your studies?
it has.
How so?
Well, first, it's a dangerous life.
Uh-huh.
But also because it was mostly during the nighttime, so I feel sleepy during classes.
Right. Yeah. And so what do you do when you feel sleepy during classes?
It's hard for me to pay attention because
Mhm.
I'm in the classes,
Right.
so I have to make up for those hours by like after class or something when I'm more awake, but I have to like revisit the notes. So it just takes so much time.
Mhm. Mhm. And so, I mean, do you think that having a job is a good thing to have when you're in school?
I would say so,
Why?
because dealing with coke really pays the bills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you have to do it just to pay the bills purposes.
I would say so, yeah.
Work people, is there anything else you want to make it out of this? I mean, are you getting enough that you're thinking that you're understanding the relationship between work and Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. Bye. Okay, now, let's see, let's do the distance thing. And someone interview me. I'll be you can interview me about it. Okay, so who wants to be the interviewer? Okay, you ready? Someone, Winnie? Someone needs to be the interviewer. So who wants to be the interviewer? Come on up.
Oh, how do you get to campus?
No, 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 no. You have to, no, 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 no. And you have to start at the beginning here, right?
Do you consent to this interview?
I do, thank you.
Letting you know that it'll be recorded.
Okay, thanks.
Alright. So we'll go to the talk about questions about this thing.
Okay. So you've given me the sleep questionnaire.
Yes.
Okay.
I have to do. Oh, like the whole thing?
You have to ask me questions.
Oh,
This is an interview.
could you tell me about yourself?
Sure.
Such as what are you studying?
Yeah, so I'm studying public health. Mhm.
What year are you in?
I'm in my 37th year at
Nice.
yeah, it's taken me a while to get through, but you know.
Okay. Have you been at UC Merced the entire time?
No, I went to junior college for a year, with El Camino
Oh.
Junior College for a year. Mhm.
Nice. And how well do you think you are doing?
Oh, I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm not, see what my grade point average is 3.2.
Cool.
Mhm.
Thanks for that. I was wondering how much you currently sleep during a normal week during the semester.
Oh, you know, it depends. If I have to come down to campus the night before, I don't usually sleep as well as when I don't have to come to campus.
Okay, interesting. Why do you think that is?
I think because I have to get up early
Okay.
and drive down. And so it's a, you know, and plus just when I have to get up early, when I have to get up in the morning and do something, then I tend to wake up and I sit and I think, I should just get up now.
Mhm.
And then I look at the clock, it's like 2 o'clock. I think, no, can't do that. So,
Cool. Do we go to the distance question now?
okay, let's do the distance question. Is there anything else you want to ask me about that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was hoping we could focus on the amount of time that takes you to get to and from school.
Mhm.
How long does it take to get to campus, for you to get to?
An hour.
Okay. And do you get here through car or public transportation?
Oh, car.
Nice. What was it like to come here? Pretty stressful or relaxing?
No, it's a pretty nice drive because there's not really much traffic. And so there's never much traffic. So it's not a bad drive. coming down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good commute.
Yeah.
So could you tell me more about that, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean, so, you know, I have to time it because I have to get here and get to my office and then get into class in time for class to start. So the only thing that really interrupts is that every once in a while there'll be road construction. And so road construction can kind of screw things up. But, you know, but other than that, it's just I know how much time it takes from door to door. And so I kind of just measured out.
Cool. And how often do you come to campus?
Usually 3 times a week.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, thank you for being interviewed.
That's it?
Yes.
You don't want to know more about my, distance people? What else do you need to know about? An hour. Yeah. Yeah, so, oh, usually about 5. Yeah, that's like, we're like ships that pass in the night. About the time you're going to sleep, we could just wave to each other as you're going home and I'm getting up. Mhm. Yeah, about 5. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if I oftentimes I do sort of feel I don't feel, it's not the morning that hits me, it's about 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That's when it hits me. Mhm. Yeah. A lot of coffee. I don't know if it does. I think it's just more at this point, I'm just addicted to it. And so therefore I just have it. But I don't know if it necessarily, I mean, it's not like if I really want to stay awake, I drink tea. Tea for some reason will wake me up much more than coffee. Yeah. Oh, between 9 and 10. Sometime like that. What's that? It depends, like not during semesters. During semesters, it tends that, and not before I have to come down to campus or do something. I have to, do something early the next day. Yeah.
What time do you leave campus when like the traffic on the way campus?
No, I usually leave about 4:30 or 5:30. No. Yeah, 4:30. I leave, and now there's usually because I live in Mariposa, so there's not really much traffic either way. And so I never have to deal with, which is nice because I've worked in them, like I worked in Boston, and in Boston, it was horrible to try and go back and forth to work, the campus. Yeah. Is this what you want to get out of this? What else do you want to know? Of distance people. Well, but you probably want to know things like I mean, because the distance people is all about how I juggle things, right? Like, do I ever feel like I have to sacrifice sleep in order to get to campus? Is that right?
I never stick with chosen logic on the word because you're tired.
No, I can't do that.
Every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't, like, if I couldn't, for the class sit there and say, can't come to class today, right? Yeah. But you'd all be so disappointed that I know that I know that you would just feel like you're just adrift because we didn't have class for the day.
You always wake up exactly at 5?
No, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes later, usually though, yeah, sometime like that. No, I think that it'd be nice. It'd be nice to have I mean, I always thought that'd be great just to fall asleep and sleep without waking up and then just wake up refreshed, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Like, I don't know why you dream. So it'd be nice if you just didn't dream, or if you had nice dreams, if you could just sort of say, I'm only, if dreams were nice all the time, then I think people would we want to sleep a lot. But when you have kind of anxiety dreams or whatever, then, it's like you sure wake me think. Sometimes I wake up and I think, I'm just gonna get out of bed because I don't want to have this dream anymore. So. But you probably want to know about how it's impacting my work, right? So. Yeah. Oh, if I get home from work, then I don't usually work when I get home because usually by then it's 5:30, so I don't really, try and work after that. If I have to, every once in a while I have to do that, and it's just miserable. It's absolutely miserable. I feel like can't think, can't get anything done, and so I'm not a night person. So, but if I wake up, I can usually do in the morning in 2 hours what it'd take me 5 hours at night to do. So are you getting enough understanding about sleep and distance driving? I mean, because I'm someone who drives a long way, right? But no traffic. So is there something that you would want to know about me that would be long distance, but no traffic? Like what's the tensions I'm likely to experience? Say it again.
Yeah.
Sure. So if I mean, like if someone says, if someone lives in Atwater, let's say, right? Where it's not that far, but they're gonna have to fight traffic a lot of times to get here. They probably have, do they have different issues than me, who lives, you know, a set ways away, but knows how long it would take?
Mhm. They're probably finding that energy to want to.
And they probably have the uncertainty, right? Because for me, I know unless there's road construction, I know pretty much if I leave the house like at 7:30, I'll get here at 8:30. But like when I grew up in LA, you'd leave the house at 7:30, you might get there at 8 o'clock, you might get there at 10 o'clock, you might get there, you just never knew. And it was the uncertainty that oftentimes, drives you crazy in situations, used to drive me crazy and things like that. So, I mean, same with, I lived in Auckland. Auckland has horrible traffic. And so we used to, if I had to be at work at 8 o'clock, I'd leave at 6, even though it only took me 20 minutes to get there. Because if I left at 7, it would take me an hour to get there. If I left at 7:30, it would take me an hour and a half to get there. And so, you have to start scheduling your life around traffic, right?
Let's say you don't drink that coffee anymore.
Uh-huh.
So how are you finding your function?
If I don't drink coffee in the morning, that's a good question. I haven't not drank coffee in so long that I don't know. I mean, yeah, would my cognitive function get better if I didn't drink coffee over time? Maybe. I mean, I think I use coffee as a way of trying to stay awake in the morning, or wake myself up in the morning. So I guess I use it that way. Anything else? Well, okay. Environment people. Environment person. Want to come down and interview someone? No environment people want to come down and interview. Okay. Well, yours, I got a little bit, raise your hand if you're an environment person. Okay. So I got a little bit confused in terms of going through and looking at what it is that you wanted to ask. I should also mention is that, what we just did, right, is not uncommon for the first time you do an interview. So, because, you go through and that, I mean, I have, here's, I think, reasonable type of prompts, and sometimes things come out and sometimes don't. And so that's why when you do these interviews, typically what you do is you do what's called a constant comparison. So what you do is you do 1 or 2, and then you go through the transcripts and you review. And then you might revise your interview script based upon what you're hearing. And then you do it again and do a couple. And so it's a process of doing the interviews, revising, doing the interviews, or revising. We're not going to do that because we're going to just all do them at the same time. But that is why you do it. Because, you think as you're going through it, you think, well, that question didn't work. Or, oh, that one said it led to something interesting. And so that's how you go through and revise it. Okay, environment group. What do you like about your current situation, how it impacts the amount of sleep you get? And do you currently live on or off campus? Is that a good question? Seems okay, right? So if you ask me, what do I like about my current situation? Well, probably want to split it up into different parts, right? So, you might start by saying, what is your current living situation? That is, do you live on campus, off, and if off in an apartment or house. And so then you might ask, what are the good and bad things? What are the good and bad things? About where you live. Okay. And then we'd like to ask you about how it impacts your sleep, right? About how your living situation impacts your sleep. So then if you live on campus, you know, can you describe, have you experienced, so you probably don't need these questions here. But unless you want to make it more specific about noise, about sleep. Can you describe how your current situation impacts your sleep? Something like that? Hmm? Okay, so on campus would be more noise than off campus would be, okay. So do it for on and off campus. And then this one, a recent experience where you could not get sleep, for example, was the disturbance within your shared room or from the outside? So that one seems okay. And then academic impact. How does this impact your academic performance? Is that kind of what you're trying to get out of the environment? Okay. All right. So then you wrap it up. So then you wrap up, you say, thank you for doing this. Do you have any other questions? Do you have any questions or anything else I should know about, about sleep and your sleep? Yeah. So like maybe something like, think of a time when you were in a situation where you could get really good sleep. What was that like? Think of a time when something like that. Okay. So you could have well, you couldn't get to sleep. So it'd be something like that. Have you ever lived in a situation where you got really good sleep? And if so, what was that like? Is that you? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll make 3 separate sheets out of this. And then I'll go ahead. And so, depending upon what your group is that then that's the interview that you do. And then we'll go through and this will be what assignment 4 looks like. So assignment 4 essentially says, first is that you go online and complete the Pittsburgh sleep survey. So you don't have to give that out before you interview someone. And then the second thing is that then you conduct an interview with someone. And it can be someone in the room or it can be another student. But you basically conduct the interview, just like we did. You record it, and then you transcribe it. So the way you transcribe it is that, let's say if you record it on your phone, right? Is that you basically just play it and then you type what it is that they've said. And that, you probably, the way that typically you do it is that you play for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, type it, and play for 5 seconds, type it, things like that. So then you kind of transcript. So it's going to look like a script or a movie script when you're done, where it says, like interviewer and then, interviewee or however you want to label them all the way down. So when you do the transcribing, the idea is that that's where you take out any information that might be identifiable. So you want to make sure that no names are mentioned, make sure that there's no, like I live in Granite Hall or whatever it is, nothing like that is mentioned. And so what comes out is basically a script that we could give to other people, and other people then would be able to read it, but not know who it was that was interviewed. Sound good? Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, what oftentimes what people do is that they go through and that they transcribe it, and then they go back and they change the name. So if you want, you can just transcribe it as is, and then before you turn it in, just go back and put in fake names, things like that, and take out anything. Yeah. Well, yeah, so I think you probably want to stay away from identifying, like, I think just on campus, but other than that, I think stay away from identifying specific dorms. It's like because it doesn't matter really. I mean, all that matters is just that for this, for the purpose of what we're doing, all that matters is that we're just going through and identifying that they live in a place that's noisy on campus. Okay, yeah,
So,
just the transcript. Yeah. Now it will take you, so the interview will probably take you between 30 minutes and 45 minutes to do. It's probably about how long these usually take. You don't have to transcribe all the intro stuff. So you don't have to transcribe like you telling them about about the study or whatever it is, right? So you don't have to do that. You can just sort of start with the questions that you start answering. That's where you can start transcribing it. It will probably take you 2 hours to go through and to do the actual transcribing. So just give yourself enough time to know that, that's along the way. And that you also want to make sure is that, if you're someone who's in the work group, is that then you interview someone who's working. And if you're someone in the distance group, that you interview someone who's doing distance. Good? Okay. So now the great match. First, so first off, groups. Environment group. So split off environment group back here. Work group here. And the distance group here, work group over there. So work, distance, environment. So split up. You can pick any group you want. But everyone, environment's there. Mhm. Environment, distance, work. Work, environment, there. Environment, over there. Distance, work. Okay. So let's see. So for the distance group, raise your hand if you're a distance group. Okay. So you need people who travel, right? So how far do you travel to get to campus? How far do you travel? Okay. Does anyone travel any distance to get to campus? Like any over? Okay. So you all travel distance to get to campus. Okay. So why don't you three then interview with one of them? Okay. Do you want me just to sign you? Like, would that help? Who? You, right? You, and we have one other distance person. Who's the other? So you need the distance person. Anyone else travel? Okay, then back here. So afterwards, just go and exchange, and you'll be the interviewer, right? You're the interviewer, you're the interviewee for that group. So distance group, we all have everyone, correct? Environment group, how many people live on campus? How many people live off campus? Okay, perfect match. So one of them, so once you pair up and then an on person and off person, just pair up and then you interview each other. Okay. So raise your hand for your environment people. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. So there's 9. So we have one other person. So we need someone for you to interview. So we have what, 4 and 4? Okay. So do they live on or off campus? Are you on? So once you two interview, are you on or off? Okay. Why don't you go ahead and interview? So you guys all match up so you match up with the person who's missing, and then you match up with the people who are, with each other. Okay. And then work people, how many people work? Okay, so we have, how many, raise your hand high for. But you're already interviewing, so you're out, the three of you are out. So, okay, so we have 2, 4, 5 people who are. Let's see, anyone else here interview? I mean, work? Work. Well, I guess what we'll do is we'll do people who work and people who don't work then, right? So why don't you do it this way? Just go and interview each other about the work. And so even if you're not working, you can still kind of ask questions about in general, what it's like to do your, you can ask the other things other than work questions, like how hard is it to study and things like that. So I'll revise the questionnaire to make it so that if you work, here are the questions to ask. If you don't work, here are the questions to ask. And then that will give you people to compare to. Sound good? So it means that you three already have people who you need people to interview, but you don't need to be interviewed, correct? And people here can be interviewed. So, so so you're all set with the yeah.
Since names aren't mentioned, can other students in my class interview? Other students that work with me, like for example, students who work, like I work on campus, interview.
Sure.
Well, even though I'm not invited.
Oh, of course. Do you mind being interviewed twice? Okay. So raise your hand if you're interviewed. If you have a job, if you work. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And raise your hand if you're in the work group. 1, 2, 3. You're in the work group, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14. So okay, we should have enough then. So let's do this as speed dating then. So people with jobs come over here. People in the work group without jobs come over here. I'm sorry? For people, you're all people with jobs, and you're all people without jobs. So stay over there. There you go. Will you job this or your job this? Okay. So why don't okay. So you two, well, you've already been interviewed. You've already been interviewed. You've already been interviewed. You have this, yeah. Come over here. You're there. Oh, well. Okay. Then we have you two, you two, you two, you two. And then you've already.
Yeah.
No. Who else? So who? Yeah. Okay, so there you go. Right there. Does everyone then have someone to interview? Okay, so we're all set?
Wait, you know, so because I'm getting interviewed.
Yeah. So you need someone to interview. It's more important to interview than be.
Okay, so we're just asking each other the same.
You're just asking same questions.
Okay.
Okay? And then you can all pair up back there. Do you know who you're pairing up with? Well, yeah, so if you know who you're gonna interview, then come up and get there. So if you're the interviewer, right, get the name and the email or the phone number or email address of the person who you're gonna interview. So you need that, so you know who you're interviewing. So go up there and get her email. You know who you're interviewing. And you.
Oh, I just that was fine. That works for me.
No, but for the
Like how I know, I have some things, they're not the same names.
Oh.
So it's just like, most of them, they're like, try to use so that way, you know, which one. I'm so kind of like, just.
No, I get you. One time I thought I was emailing or texting a friend, it was actually.
So just to, so you can do the. So you can do this over the phone if you want, or you can do it over Zoom. And, you know, record it over Zoom, so whatever way you want, or you can do it in person. By next week.